Welcome back, everybody. I am super excited to bring this next guest on because this is somebody that, although we do not go back years and years and years, it absolutely feels that way just because of his knowledge, the connection, how easily accessible he is, and just so much that he brings to the table. Justin Konikow, he is a huge media creator and in the real estate space that you'll absolutely want to connect with. And we're going to get more into his story here shortly. But Justin, how are you? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm doing well. I'm in Grand Bend, Ontario, Canada, so a little beach town just north of Michigan. My territory, as you mentioned, London is kind of the metropolitan heart of that territory. That's where my company Prime's located. But we cover about, an hour and a half in every single direction. So, sandwiched between the two Great Lakes in my basement, gym/studio. So happy to be here. Thanks, brother, for having me.
Heck yeah, no. So thank you. I'm really excited that you agreed to this because one of the things that, well, just a quick backstory how we met, it was on Clubhouse. And a lot of the audience kind of is picking up a theme. Well, Jaime, is that where you get all your guests? Yes, at this point, yes. Because Clubhouse has just been that huge connector where individuals like you and myself, would we have met in the future? Maybe. But we just, with Clubhouse, we've been able to connect with such power players in different markets. And not only that, just build a community very, very quickly in a rapid pace that I don't see any other social media platform doing that. But one of the things that really stood out on Clubhouse is it's an audio only app. And one of the things that kept coming up was whenever you would speak, a lot of people, they would flash their mics. There was a lot of different, agreement, if you will, in the message that you were conveying. And it really dawned on me the reason that I gravitated towards you, a lot of other individuals gravitated towards you, is because you have an effective communication style. You have an effective communication message that really resonates with your peers. So you're highly respected among your peers, but also it translates into your clients, whether that's a singular buyer, a singular seller, or developers. Has anybody ever complimented you on your communication style or communication skills?
Well, I've been told that I'm very direct. Like the person you meet online is the person that you're going to meet in real life. And I think that goes to my background, right? I used to be in the service industry and hospitality. So I would deal with, 1,500 to 2,000 people a night coming through our locations. And when you're talking to people belly to belly, I think that's where I really developed my communication skills and realizing I didn't care if you were wearing a $10,000 suit or you just got off the job site. We're all just people at the end of the day. So I definitely appreciate that. I've never been told it that eloquently. So yeah, I'll be conscious of it and try and honor that in the future.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, Justin, tell us, how did you get into real estate? And, what was that journey like? Was there other, do you have family members in the industry? How did real estate find you, or how did you find real estate?
So I got thrown off a cliff kicking and screaming into real estate. Didn't want to do it, actually. Like I said, I was in the hospitality industry. My family actually owned a customer service business. So story of my background in terms of me growing up, I grew up in Montreal. My dad owned a distribution company. I worked for DuPont at the time, got laid off. And I remember when we were young, scraping by, he basically bought the client list, the inventory list, and just started the company from scratch. So I watched him build it ethically over time. And, he brought me in. I worked like my hands to the bone with him at that company. And he taught me a lot of lessons about hard work, showing up, in that industry, there's different things that can happen one way or another. And, he showed me about making the right decisions early on ethically so that nobody can own you and, building a solid foundation for a company. I moved to London in the early 2000s, met a man by the name of Mike Smith, who owns a whole bunch of restaurants. But when I met him, he was sweeping up cigarette butts in the parking lot. And I love telling this story because he talked to me for 45 minutes. He didn't know me at all. I had a friend giving me a job as a bouncer, I think, when I started. And I was like 155 pounds, definitely not a guy who was an intimidating figure at all. And went inside, somebody's like, hey, do you know who that was? And I was like, no. And they're like, that's Mike. He owns everything. And to me, that really implanted servant leadership in my mind. So I had service-based background, kind of the entrepreneurial mindset, and then a service-based leader that became a mentor of mine. And I came up in his company. I started off as a bouncer, I couldn't fight for the life of me. So I had to learn how to talk to everybody. So that helped from a communication standpoint. I ended up being a DJ. I ended up being a bar back, a bartender, a supervisor for all the bar backs, created an infrastructure on that, created an internship company at the organization, and ultimately became the marketing coordinator. So my background is marketing and advertising, right? Belly to belly, consumer experience, branding. My wife that I met, incredible woman, MBA from Ivy, very unassuming, absolute sweetheart, kept telling me when I was working for Mike kind of at the end, like, there's more for you. Like, this is, you have something inside of you. Let's go out and open a business. And she threw all kinds of stuff at me, and real estate was one that kept coming back over and over. And my response to her was, I don't want to be a greaseball on a golf course. I don't know any agents that work hard. I thought everything about the industry that the consumers do. She kind of tricked me into getting my license. I fell in love with the industry. And then I woke up one day and she gave me a business plan. She was pregnant, and like, we were a team, but I was kind of the face and she was the systems. And we were working at a big multinational brokerage at the time. She gave me a business plan and she said, let's create a company that does real estate. So she gave me essentially the foundations of Prime, which is what we have now. And it was truly a company that does real estate, an organization that is not a sales office. We don't recruit. We turn away a lot of agents every year because we're just not that type of firm. And it was literally adding pieces on as we grew it. And I couldn't be happier. I love working with clients. I love selling. So I'm actually in production. I have no interest in getting out of production, but at the same time, bringing in talent, encouraging that talent, developing relationships with developers, and so on and so forth is my passion. And now the content piece, that kind of came right with it, where we have the production company, we have an agency as well, all with under the same Prime umbrella.
That is awesome. That is awesome. You know, have you ever played I'm about to derail the conversation.
Yeah, let's do it.
Give you a heads up. Have you ever played the game? I believe it's called Two Truths and a Lie.
No.
All right. So the game is basically where you tell individuals, whether it's usually a party game, where you share two truths about yourself and then a lie. And then it's, you know, people have to guess, you know, which was a lie. So the reason I asked that is because of your journey. If you had to, obviously all of it is true, but if I had to guess which one was a lie, I would have guessed the bouncer part.
That's amazing.
I get the other parts, I get everything else. So that's just awesome, but it makes a lot of sense, right? You mentioned it, you know, you said it in a joking way, if you will. You know, I couldn't fight, so I had to talk my way out of things. But that is, you know, words are powerful. We understand that, or some of us, you know, some of us more than others. But beyond that, it's, you know, getting those types of high pressure situations. I'm imagining this because I have never been in that situation. It, you know, it gives you, you know, you have to be creative with how you're speaking to people. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned, whether it's somebody that is, I'm going to imagine, worth a lot of money, in a financial sense, that's, you know, sweeping up cigarette butts or whatever. Everybody is a person at the end of the day. So if you're treating people with dignity, which I see you do that every single day, and even in the clubhouse rooms where, you know, there's some people that I would completely go off on, you just immediately diffuse the situation and then you're starting to build from there. So just going through that, that's just awesome, man. That's awesome. I really appreciate just you sharing a little bit more about that, because I know the level of success that you've had, and you're being very, very humble right now. So I'm gonna need you to stop doing that because I want you to, you know, kind of going into a continuation of how you started. Right now, I know that you're always making content, whether that's stories, whether that's news feeds, and these are highly produced videos, that you have a lot of content out there. But beyond that, you're in production and you're creating a lot of value and changing a lot of people's lives. Can you talk a little bit about how to communicate with developers? And the reason I want to bring up that conversation is because, you know, so when I say developers, I mean people that have access to multiple units, whether that's a high rise or it's units. I mean, in our area, we don't really have high rises at all. So we're talking about developments that are single stories. So developers, investors, people that have access of, it's a one-to-one relationship, but they have access to many. So can you talk about how, you build that proximity, how you communicate with them? Because I'm guessing, because I've never really worked on that side of the equation, I'm guessing that it's a different type of conversation, but I could be wrong.
It's actually a much simpler conversation than you think. So when I'm talking to them, I used to be over the top in the beginning, right? So say I got a new development or I was doing a new construction project. We had 40 homes for sale. The amount of reporting I would give them in the emails would be so lengthy. I realized after a very short order, they don't read them. Like literally 2 lines, 3 paragraphs max. That's about the length of time that they're going to put into an email read. So a lot of it is just belly to belly phone conversations. Like when we get off this, I'm going to call one of my favorite developers because we sold out his site, but I'm continuing to offer him value by having a plan in terms of what we're going to do from a branding perspective, keeping buyers engaged, talk about pricing strategy, what's happening in the market. So if I was going to give your audience some type of value when it comes to like, how do I work with a developer? Give them something of value that they can't get out of MLS, right? Don't just give them a sold data, interpret the data for them, save them time, because I think the industry has a very standard of what a real estate agent can bring a new home builder or a new developer in terms of, yeah, I sit at the open house, you'll scrape my leads, maybe you'll do a deal here or there. You're interchangeable, right? The way that I've developed my relationships with the people I work with is I become undeniable. They can hire 1,000 other agents to sit at an open house. They can only hire one agent that has a real estate brokerage, a production company, and a social media agency under one roof. And I've got the capital that I'm able to deploy against their projects, even when I'm not making money. So that's also a mindset that I have where I show them that I'm not in it for a dollar. I will take a loss leader on certain things and I'll take bullets for them so that they can focus on their job. So I guess that's the second tip would be, a lot of times builders are in the business of building. They don't want to handhold buyers. They don't want to answer a million questions. So if you could do the due diligence up front, a lot of times when you're in the actual trenches with them, you're providing so much value. They don't see it because nothing's coming to them. You're just putting out fires left, right, and center, but you do have to communicate to them, right? Every time you're talking to them, you have to show them value. You have to resell yourself to them again and explain why you're working together. But I also think it's a partnership, right? Because I've had a builder in the past that I fired because the ethics that they held didn't line up with mine. They disrespected one of my staff members and I had a choice, do I maintain the integrity of the culture of my organization or do I worry about the 100 homes I'm going to sell for them in the next 3 years? 100 homes at a commission rate is no joke, right? In terms of opportunity. But when I stood by what I created in terms of prime, I got 3 times the amount of business because I had other developers see the decision that I made and call me and say, hey, like we didn't really think they lined up with you anyways. This is incredible, right? So, it's getting out in front and attracting them to you, fulfilling your obligations during the opportunity, continuing to maintain that relationship and grow it and tack on different value adds. But then at the end of the day, I think you always have to do almost like a reset every year with every single one you're working with and see, does this align with what I'm looking to accomplish? And because it is a partnership, right? You don't work for them. You guys are supposed to be working together.
I like that. I wish I had a little a little bell or something. I do have a bell.
Get a Rodecaster Pro. They have little clap and laughter buttons and all that stuff. They're hilarious.
That's awesome. No, so I really like that aspect. And it kind of goes back, I guess I have to remind myself of this, Justin, like at the end of the day, people are people. And in a good way, people are used to hearing that like in a bad conversation. Well, people are going to be people, but I'm saying that people are people. So going back to that whole, treating people with respect and that dignity. So it's no different here. So that's really cool. That's really cool. So as far as, just when it comes to communicating, and this doesn't have to be with the developer anymore, but it can be really any type of client, whether that's a buyer or a seller. When you're training your folks, your team, or even you're improving yourself, what are some things that you conscientiously think about before you go into that listing appointment, or you encourage your agents to consider before they go into that listing appointment to maximize the success rate? Is there something that stands out?
Yeah, I think preparedness is a big piece of it, right? So having a standard process that you go through every single time where You know the market like the back of your hand, because that's why they're hiring you. You understand how you're going to succeed and actually list their home. So having a set calendar of events of this is what to expect next, because I think a lot of agents fail, show up when the listing and the sellers are like, okay, what happens now? And they never tell them. They just call them, oh, we're doing photos today. We're doing this day. Takes what, 20 minutes to write that out on a document and have that as a template. And then I do think personally, this is just me. I know a lot of people need a listing presentation. I win 99% of my listing presentations without a piece of paper in front of me. I talk, right? So I walk them through the entire process, start to finish, but I have it down pat. Like I could sit down with you right now, if I knew some comps about your house in your area, give you some idea of what's happening in the market, because they want to know that you're an expert, what I've kind of done in the area. Then the next portion of the actually before that portion of the conversation, I'm going to get to know you a little bit. I'm going to develop a 60-second friend. I'm going to try and get to know what your end game is. Why am I sitting here? Like, where are you going when you move? Like, do you have a dog? Do you like doing YouTube videos? If I can anchor some things about you that maybe we have in common, okay, now we're getting somewhere. All right, let's talk stats. This is why I do what I do. This is kind of who I am. All right, let's talk about your property. Who's the buyer for it? How are we going to go find those buyers? And then how are we going to end up negotiating the best deal? Because I think listing is pricing, marketing, negotiations, kind of in that order, right? So I do tell people, because we charge what we charge, they could get a discount broker. But if they hit the top end of all three of those things, they're going to net more money. And I could show them case studies. So then I show up with actual case studies that I have saved. Rarely do I ever have to bring them up, but I'll walk them. And so here's an example. Jamie just sold a property on a street. There were two of the exact same homes. One was listed at $599. We came in with a pricing strategy of listing at $549. We did our paid advertising. We did all of our targeting, got the buyers in. We held offers for a week, but we didn't sign 244. So we were open to bully offers. The one that was listed at $599 sold for $595. Ours sold for $650,000. Same bedrooms, same square footage, same quality, same area. So now tell me that I didn't bring more value than the other agent that was on the other street, just by having a clearly defined process, right? So I just told you the story. Chances are you're not going to ask me to see it, but if you do want to see it, I've got the address, I've got everything kind of prepped. Never really gets to that point, because again, a lot of it comes in the conveyance of confidence in the conversation. So to wrap that up in a bow, be prepared. Don't just show up willy-nilly to a listing appointment like so many agents do and just wing it. Have an idea of local expertise, give them value, then create a relationship first, then show them your expertise, walk them through how you're going to market the property and how you're going to negotiate it, provide some case studies. And then the last tip I'll give is assume you got the deal. Like I pretty much at the end of the conversation, I'm like, all right, so here's the calendar of events. When do you want me to show up and put the sign? When do you want to do photography? I don't even ask them to sign anything. We just start going through and putting it in the calendar, and then we hit the paperwork, because by then it's already kind of assumed, right?
Yeah. That is awesome. I hadn't even thought about that aspect of it, hitting it with the process. So most people go, including myself, into the whole, I assume the close, if you will, but with the document in hand. Say, all right, let's sign this listing agreement. But if you lead, I guess, the witness with, let's do the photos, let's do this, that, and the other, well, there's going to be a step that you kind of have to meet in the middle, which is that listing agreement. So that's awesome.
They've put in the work to set the calendar dates, right? So then there's that sunk cost fallacy that they're like, okay, well, they're coming here for photos. And like, that's the point where a lot of times they'll come in and say, well, I'm interviewing a few other brokers, right? And I'm more than welcome to have them do that. That's a little bit trickier of a situation, because if they say that, typically they're going to be price shopping. Maybe they are looking for a different email template saying, this is what you get with Prime, right? Top to bottom, this is everything that you're going to get. There's not another brokerage out there or agent out there that's going to do all of these things for you. And if there is, let me know and we can have a discussion about that. Because I always try and re-engage the conversation before they sign. But sometimes not every client's for every agent, right? And I don't want every single client. I want the ones that I want to work with.
Yeah. So so when it comes to rejections, like, I want to think about it, things like that, or you mentioned I know you kind of went on the example of, I'm basically looking at other brokers. What are some strategies that you can give the audience on taking any not rejection, but any, oh my gosh, what I'm struggling with words, but taking a, I don't want to do this now, or let me think about it, let me sleep on it. What are some things that you what are you things that you say at that moment?
A lot of times I let them sleep on it. Honestly, like I'm not a high pressure sales guy by any means because I don't want to be sold, right? But I can tell you if somebody's saying that, like I want to think about it, they're probably not going to go with you, right? Like if it's getting to that part of the conversation, you can, it's kind of like an interview, right? Say, yeah, we'll get back to you. It's the same thing for real estate agents. So what I try and do is I try and reconnect because clearly you haven't formed a connection with them enough to have a transparent communication as to, well, I don't like your commission, or I don't like your marketing plan, or you haven't sold in this area. Like you got to dig and find the objections. So I just ask, right? This goes back to maybe me being a bouncer, but like, unless you're pulling a knife on me, you're not really going to rattle me. So, I'll tell you, I'll be like, by all means, I'm welcome to competition. I'm confident there's not another agent in this market that can offer what I offer. Not only that works as hard as I do. Let me ask you this. Is it the commission? Is it the marketing plan? Like, what are you looking for that maybe I didn't answer today? And then shut up, sit in the suck. Just like when somebody says like, ask me what I charge for commission. Go ahead.
Justin, what do you charge for commission?
I charge 5%. We gave 3% to the brokerage side for the marketing advertising, 2% to the cooperating broker. Most agents, when they do that portion, will over explain. Oh, I charge this because this, and then you're 2 minutes in and you're like, why are you over explaining yourself, right? It's the same thing when you're dealing with objections. Hey, like, this is what I do. Like, is it commission? Is it marketing? Give them a couple answers that maybe hit the nail on the head. Be like, is it any one of those? And then be quiet. And the next person to speak loses. Because if they turn around and say, no, everything's amazing, be like, okay, if it's amazing, so sign now. Like you can almost have fun with it from that standpoint where you got to do a little bit of work. But again, don't waste time on people that aren't willing to invest in your quality, right? So like I'll go into a listing appointment and if it's all the talk about commission, they just keep bringing it up over and over and over. And I'm showing them like, yeah, you might save 1% going with the discount broker over here, but I can make you 30 more. They're not built for me. They don't understand the value proposition and I actually bounce. So I let clients go all the time. I'm okay walking away from business because I don't need to chase every single thing out there. I want to work with the people I would love to work with because I'm going to sit up at night thinking about them. But if they're disrespectful, not my people. They can hire somebody else, right? Same thing on the commission side, same thing on the ejection side. And I give it zero thought after. It can sell with another agent in a week for 50 grand more than I thought it would. Who cares? I don't have a time machine. You can't go back in time and sit and regret. I'll wake up and what can I focus on today? What opportunities in front of me? I'll call Jaime and I'll do another YouTube video or I'll work on something on my business. Like just do something productive. There's no sense in, crying over spilled milk.
And that's also something else that's really, I've been following you on social media and, on the stories, the messages that you communicate on your feed. There's just so much positivity there. So is that something that just comes natural to you? Is that, how does that come? Like, I have a hard time myself.
Yeah. So, it comes from my background, right? So like I talk about those days in the past. I have a sordid past for sure. Like when I was in that world, I was an addict, I've been sober 7 years now from everything, but I had an insight into a pretty dark world. And when I met my wife, and I feel like God gave me 2 chances to pull myself out of the situation that I was in, or I would have died. So I know what both sides of it's like. I've had times in my life where I've been super depressed and probably struggled with issues that a lot of other people struggle with. And it was something I actually read this morning when I was doing my devotionals that made a lot of sense to me and would translate to this conversation. And it was, my whole life, I lived like I was Madonna. And Madonna has this concept where she's never the best album ever, get all the praise in the world for it, but it means nothing after she puts it out. She's like, I got to do something else. I got to be in this constant motion of getting the world's acknowledgement and everybody else's praise. I was at the bars and the restaurants. I thought that was the amazing life and lots of friends and everything else too. But like when I dug into it and I got sober, I realized like, who was really my friend? Who's my friend that really wants the best for me at the end of the day and isn't just enjoying my presence because I add to the livelihood of whatever they're doing, right? I was really able to step back for a second, and the conversation or the devotional I was reading this morning expanded on that and said, once you realize that we're all imperfect and you can't keep chasing this false sense of perfection for your whole life, then you realize there's complete freedom in that. And it doesn't matter if you lose the listing. It doesn't matter if the YouTube video doesn't pop. And it doesn't matter if somebody says they like you or they don't like you. At the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the same place. At the end of the day, I believe that we're beautifully and wonderfully made by a creator who has our best interests at heart. And we're here to minister through the work that we have and empower other people. So when you ask, was it something ingrained in you? It definitely wasn't, because I was probably one of the most self-deprecating people ever, until I feel like God spoke to me and pulled me out of that and opened my eyes and said, yeah, you can live in this world here where your identity is completely established by what you're doing for me today, and the hedonistic environment where it's just about personal pleasure, or you can start living to serve other people. And that's the trick, right? So when I started giving back to my staff, to my people, living the servant leadership that Mike taught me actually in my life, the compounding effect and gratitude that I get from doing that is why you see me smiling like this, right? Because I feel like I'm kind of found my spot where, like, I'm not an influencer. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I know a lot of cool people that have taught me some really cool stuff, and I can see in other people greatness. I see greatness in you. I see greatness in Melissa on my team that I was talking to yesterday about content creation and her brand and everything else. And I pull it out of people, right? And I got energy for days. So for me, it's really puts me in a good mood when I can take that energy and apply it in a positive mindset, but at the same time, identify that dark world that I used to know and pull people out of it, and tell them that their self-defeating narratives and the self-deprecation and, the acknowledgement of the world doesn't matter, that they can find fulfillment in things other than just chasing that dragon, right?
That's so good, Justin. That is so good. I'm going to have to clip that, and I'm going to start, doing as much content as you. You're going to see me blow up on Instagram. I promise.
You're a killer, dude. You've got so much skills. Like, honestly, just kudos to you, because we met on Clubhouse, but I feel like I've known you for 20 years. Because the one thing I learned from you, I've got energy. I talk fast. You speak with intent, right? You remind me of like the Elon Musk type that thinks about their answers and doesn't just speak for the sake of speaking. So now you talk about two friends that are worlds apart that are teaching each other things. Think about where we'll be in 20 years, right? If you can't get excited about that, then I don't know what you can get excited about.
I'm just excited that you compared me in the same sentence to Elon Musk.
There you go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I promised I was going to keep you at a respectable time, because I know you have places to be. But before we end, I want to understand a little bit more about how you get so many things done. Because as people start following you, people are going to realize how active you are. So how does that, do you have structure? How does that work?
Okay. So I'll give a couple tangible tools. As you know, I've got some PDFs I put together on this topic, right? So content creation, it's all preparation. You know that. I'm not going to educate your audience on that because that's your world. Productivity, it starts with the night before, right? So my journal here, I have a page for every single day, right? I wake up in the morning, and typically I'll do a little bit of journaling at the top, some intent for the day. I'll have this prep the night before. So when I get done my work day, at the end of the day, I'll kind of reverse engineer it. Wife, daughter time, family time, all that fun stuff. 10 o'clock rolls out, jump into the real estate broker's lounge. I sit here at my desk and I open my notebook and I open what I call my external brain. I use Monday.com. You can use Trello, you can use Notes, whatever. 3 categories: urgent, which means the house is burning down, has to get done today, this week, someday. So 4 categories. Then what I do is I take all of the stuff in my brain and I dump it on the paper first. So I just start writing stuff. Podcast with Jaime. I gotta take out the garbage. I gotta launch a new development. I gotta do a YouTube video. Brain dump, right? 15 minutes is how long this process usually takes me. Brain dump everything, and then I organize it in my external brain. So I pull it into my categories and I look at it and then I cross them out as I go through. Now it's living in a digital external brain that I can access from anywhere. Then I take the external brain and I have my calendar right next to it. So my calendar is usually set for the week, and I take all of those items and I time block them based on priority into my calendar, right? So I'm usually taking 6 urgent items, 6 today items, 6 this week items, and maybe 3 someday items, whatever. I look at the gaps in my calendar and I fill all my gaps. Then when I start my day and I shoot my podcast with you, as soon as I'm done, I'm running my clubhouse room at 11:30. That's already set. As soon as I'm done my clubhouse room at 11:30, I have a quarterly commercial newsletter meeting, 15 minutes. That's automated. I don't even have to do that. Now I have family time from 1 until 2 p.m. And then I have a listing appointment at 3. That, like, everything is there. So the super hack about doing this, it's like having an assistant, because if you do it the night before, your day's like a video game. You just wake up and you're just running from level to level, and you're just able to do the work because you've spent the time preparing. So the same concept you use in content preparation, I use with my mind sweeping and my calendar time blocking. There's some more comprehensive ways that I get into it as well. So like in my calendar, for example, I color code by different things so I can see my work time versus my family time versus my personal time. So, I've got a purple time block for my content time. So I make sure I'm including content throughout my day. I could do a whole hour episode on that, but I just started with a notebook and a calendar. And then I just added little pieces on as I went. Just like you started launching a video on YouTube, and then you got really good at titles, and then you got really good at thumbnails and really good at descriptions and tags, right? Which is the journey I'm kind of going on now. So it's fun to start at the beginning, I find sometimes.
That is so good. That is so good. And just to give you kind of like how it's resonating with me, I may not even release this video because I don't want, I'm kidding. Of course I won't release it. But
do whatever you want.
That's that abundance, right? So it's, when it comes to how it's resonating with me, you've already given me two actionable items just from that, where I consider myself relatively effective, just everybody's different, right? However, I still identify within myself that I waste a lot of time. So I have to imagine and really forecast my way there, my limited success that I have so far. If I could amplify that, I'd be dangerous. But the two things that I took away is I am a writer. That's what I do. That's where my nature is. But I just work so hard. I'm looking over here on my left-hand side because I have my Evernote here, and I force myself over here. So I love the fact that you brought up the let's do this in physical form first, and then I can transpose it over here. Where I used to think that was ineffective, but no, my nature is this. And I think that there's a lot of power in writing. My favorite teacher in high school, Mrs. Collins, she ingrained that in me, and listening to classical music while I work, but really ingrained that part in me. So that's one that I'm going to bring into my workflow today. And then two is actually putting it on the calendar. I have Trello and I have the action items and everything else, but I fail to, make it, okay, sure. I have to do, just to give you an example, I have to draft my Thursday newsletter.
Yep.
Well, at what time, Jaime? At what time are you going to do that? So I like that ask. So that's the second thing. So one, write. Two, actually put it on the calendar.
I'll give you another hack of how my brain works too, where anything that, and one of my mentors taught me this, that anything that takes 20 clicks, make it take 1 or 2, right? So the fact that you use Trello, I know Trello has the ability to create a date and time association with that. I'm pretty sure they have an integration where you can add it to your Google Calendar automatically. So say you're setting up the task, you can automate it in Trello so that every time you set a date and time, it transfers to your calendar. You can make it a calendar you can turn on and off so it doesn't look crazy, but that automation, you're on one platform. You don't even need to use your calendar if you're using your productivity planner correctly, right? So I would definitely recommend that, because when you see it on your calendar, and here's the super hack, I can take my calendar at the end of the week. So I do 15 minutes in the morning, 50 minutes at night. Saturday mornings, I pour a coffee. This one's getting cold. And I sit down for a half an hour to 45 minutes. And I do almost a thorough time block. And I look at my week and I look at all of my blocks, and I'll scan them, and all kinds of stuff won't get done. But you can play Tetris with it. So you can drag them around your calendar and be like, oh, that one didn't matter. Delete. Okay, I'll move this here. Reset. let's go. And when you do the Saturday mind sweep for the next week, your daily time blocks are a lot faster because your week is already kind of sorted, right? So, you know, that same mentor called it the doom wheel, where it starts really slow at the beginning to push the wheel, but as it starts going, it's like, and then it starts going so quick and you're trying to like, okay, that wheel's good, I can go focus on this, right? So start your doom wheel.
Justin, where can people connect with you? Because I mean, we could go on for days, but I promised I was going to be respectful of your time. I know you got to go. Where can people connect with you?
So I would love if everybody went to my YouTube channel and hit subscribe. But if you want to talk to me one-to-one, Instagram is the place. At justin.konikow. Make sure you put the dot. There's a guy that owns, I think, a male burlesque club in LA or something that has my name, which is super random. So look for this face and I'll connect with you on the DM, and then I'll get you to my YouTube channel because I'm putting a lot of effort into that.
I love it. And we'll link everything down below. Justin, man, I appreciate this. This was beyond what I expected. I'm glad that we did this, got to learn a little bit more about you. And then you also just gave me something that I feel like I need to cut you a check after our session. So I'll make sure I do that.
You just tell me what I got to do with this background for my YouTube channel. We'll be all right.
I love it. All right, my friend. Thank you
See you, buddy.
much.
All right. Take care.